It's nice to see all the Arrows gear back, though, now that they won that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. Happy Easter, gentlemen, and happy Easter and happy Passover to everyone who are celebrating those holidays this past long weekend. I am joined by the fantastic duo of Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Gentlemen, I hope you had a great long weekend. There is a ton of rugby going around. We had a sevens tournament getting wrapped up. We had European Club Championship rugby going on. We had Women's Six Nations. We had MLR. And of course, Team Canada was competing in the bubble at the Men's World Curling Championship. So lots of sports going on this weekend. I hope you guys were able to sit down, relax, and enjoy some of the action.
Yeah, I guess the Arrows must have won on the weekend, since I'm seeing a little bit of an increase in Arrows gear upon my co-host's heads here.
Well, you see, I'm not fully ready to jump back on the wagon, so I got the stealthy shirt on.
Stealth shirt.
It's is he wearing Arrows stuff?
Because you're a
I don't know.
fan? Because you don't want people to know that you're an
No,
Arrows
they have to win my love back.
Arrows fan?
They caused me trauma the first 2 weeks. They got to win me back, and that win definitely started bringing me back. I don't know about you.
Hey,
Steve.
at least you didn't bet against them, unlike.
I don't know, Derek. I mean, isn't that the same top that you were wearing last week? Is that your only Arrows stash?
Oh God, thank God we do this remotely. That's right. He's probably a little stinky over there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's why we're all on Zoom, because we don't want to smell Derek.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do that.
I got a couple of Arrows. I got a couple of Arrows hats or whatever. I got something from the rugby shop on the way too.
How convenient! It's not here yet.
Yeah, hey, if you guys want to buy me more Arrows gear, feel free to do it.
You got to earn it. The
only way you earn it is by playing on the team.
Win competitions to get caps. That's what I do.
Yeah, I still have my my Founders Club hat somewhere in Toronto. I don't know where they're storing them right now, but
sorry, they're down in Atlanta. That's the problem.
Shoot! All right, well, someone booked me a flight to go to my hat.
Possibly NOLA. That's where the first home game is, anyways.
Yeah, I saw that. At first I saw someone say it'd be to be determined, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then I saw another place that was going to be in NOLA. So that's interesting. We'll get into the Arrows match pretty soon. But guys, we had a lot of news. Canadian Rugby League, sevens, lots of news. So we're going to get right into that. And the first little bit of news we're going to talk about is that Kingsley Jones was on the halftime show with the Toronto Arrows game, being interviewed by the MLR media team there. Brittany Coe?
Brianna Kim.
And she was kind of asking him some questions about the relationship between MLR and Rugby Canada and how it's kind of been a boon. People kind of took Kingsley as that he was insulting MLR by saying that he never thought that it would get to this point, which, I mean, I don't blame him for saying that. I mean, if you're a former Welsh rugby player, coach of a Pro 12 or Pro 14 team, to see MLR kind of blossom as it is, I would not be surprised either. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the big news coming out of this interview is that Kingsley Jones announced that Rugby Canada is planning, and again, nothing's been official yet, to play England in July, and that there are 2 other test matches that they are trying to shore up for this July as well.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you guys, I got 2 questions. With the U.S. Eagles also scheduled to play England, how big of an impact will this have on the final rounds of MLR? Because this, depending on when he tries to pull his players, and same thing with Gary Gold with the U.S., he's going to want to have a training camp of some kind before they play England. So who knows what kind of timeline that he's looking at to take players away. So how is this going to affect MLR, especially going into the playoffs?
It's definitely going to have an impact on it. I think I've seen the idea tossed around that maybe you come to some sort of compromise and you only take X amount of players from each team. If you're the Eagles, I mean, if you're Canada, you probably got to lean a little bit hard on the Arrows anyways. But I don't think Rugby Canada or the Eagles should be doing that. I think you need to, if you're going to prepare to play the World Cup qualifiers in August and you're going to prepare for that by playing England, you want to put your best foot forward to play England, right? So you probably, which in my opinion is going to mean that, yeah, like the MLR rosters will be rated for players if these test matches happen, because that's the player pool for Canada and the United States, right? And there's going to be certain teams that are going to be hit a lot harder um than others, and there's going to be teams that maybe aren't hit as badly as others, and it could have a huge impact on like the way the playoff races shape out depending on where teams are. And you kind of also kind of got to wonder how a team like LA, who has famously, acquired multiple extra foreign player slots, right? It's like, and built their team around what seems to be a lot of foreign players, um that they might not be hurt as badly as any of the other teams, right? Which is in a weird way, right? Um, so I think that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, like, if these test matches do happen, when, like, as you said, Dan, when guys are pulled for like a camp or whatever. And but yeah, like it'll be interesting because it's like, obviously the MLR season is supposed to be designed to end before the test window, as it was what the schedule was going to look like in 2020. But because of COVID, they delayed the start of the season by a month and pushed it back to March 20th. And now we kind of see the impact of that, where it's like it is leading into the test window. And kind of unlike the ARC in 2019, it's, where teams were kind of down a lot of their big name players at the beginning of the season. Teams, if the Eagles and Canada are going to play test matches in July, teams are going to be down their big name players at the most important time of the year. And I think, like, there's positives and negatives of it. I think for the Eagles and Canada, it's, you probably really want to play a test match or two before the Rugby World Cup qualifiers, just because, I mean, as we've seen with the first couple weeks of MLR, they kind of have a little preseason vibe to it, where it's taken a couple weeks for guys to, like, find all their gears and like actually start teams offenses and stuff to start clicking. So I don't think either the USA or Canada wants their first test match since the World Cup to be a Rugby World Cup qualifier. I think both teams would be looking for that. And whether it's England, somebody else, you probably want to play someone before that, or even at the very least, you probably want to play each other before that in a game that doesn't count towards the qualifiers. Although maybe you don't want to do that, because that could give you
Yeah.
that could give like a mental edge to the team that wins or something. So maybe you don't actually want to do that, but you'd probably want to play a game. And unfortunately, that's going to mean that a lot of MLR guys are going to be away on international duty at the most important time of the season, which, I mean, it could mean, hey, maybe you miss out on something like
For sure.
last year, like a Toronto San Diego final without Lucas Rumball and Sam Mooching in the 7 jerseys, right? Like it'd
Yeah.
be interesting.
Stu, how do you feel about this bomb that Kingsley's kind of dropped? We kind of knew about this, like we
Yeah,
talked about
it's
this.
not too surprising.
It's not too surprising, but the commitment and excitement of the head coach makes it a little bit more real. How do you feel about this, Stu?
Yeah, so I've just quickly had a look for the dates that were in place for when, because I believe the original plan was England was going to come to the United States and Canada at the current moment. And because it's now 3 or 4 months now from that test window, now's the time where you have to be saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. The situation in Canada makes it seem like the mandatory 2-week quarantine is going to be in place for a while. So I have the feeling that the backup option of the US and Canada going to England is the likely outcome of that game. So the pre-existing dates for those matches would be the United States would face England on the 17th of July and Canada would face on the 24th. So 1 week after the other. And I haven't had the time to check which games are going on in MLR on those Saturdays, but obviously 24th of July is the first, that's the playoffs, the first round of the playoffs. So that'll be the conference finals. And the week before would be the final week of the MLR season. You know, the United States is going to have another test around the same day as Canada, England. So you can imagine with the training camps that the US has already said that they want to have in place prior to having these games. You can imagine that these players would be absent through all of July. So that would be the final 3 rounds of Major League Rugby, then the conference finals, and then hoping they would be back for their teams for the grand final. It sounds like a perfect way to water down the final few rounds.
Would you even come back for the final though? Because it's like you probably just go right into your like World Cup
it's tricky, right? Like
prep. But also like maybe those dates change too. I mean, they said in July, so they're probably not going to change too much, I guess.
Yeah, my question is like, do they want to keep it as like when is the Lions tour?
The Lions tour is on those same days. So
okay, so then
I think it's like
that point.
Yeah. The point I'm making is that what I think from like a Rugby America's North perspective is that they want to do this tour. Now, this tour was originally meant to be coming to North America as a means of like money revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if that goes to England, it may be a case of they have to just stick with like a match fee that they get instead. But that is yet to be seen. But for these like World Cup qualifiers of to determine which one will be North America 1 and North America 2, from the union's position, say if any of their like star players get injured in these games against England or any of the other test sides, they'll want to have a buffer window to ensure that everyone's ready to go. And I think there was talk of these games would be taking place in August or September to qualify for the Rugby World Cup. So it wouldn't be like instantaneous of going from these games straight into the test, the hopefully home and away like test bubble to determine who's going to be North America 1. So there would be a bit of a buffer there.
Yeah, my question is, and it's a good point Derek made, is would Rugby Canada even then release, say the England test matches happen closer to the top of July?
Mm-hmm.
You then have all this time with the rest of the MLR season. Does Rugby Canada in the US even release their players saying, I don't want you guys getting hurt for when we have that window? We're not going to be able to answer that tonight. That's just something for fans to think about. It's going to be very
speculation. I think though.
Yeah, for sure.
I think ultimately though, like there's no way this, like if they're gonna play test matches, there's no way it doesn't impact the MLR season.
For sure.
And the MLR season has already been like wildly unpredictable. That'll make it even more wildly unpredictable. But at the same time, we all saw how close 2019 was. Like that final day of the 2019 season when you had like 4 teams fighting for the final like 2 playoff spots or 3 playoff spots or whatever it was. It'll be nuts.
Yeah, well, we won't know. Now, quickly, guys, one of the other questions I had, we got to go through it quickly, but who are 2 test sides that you would want to see Canada play in July? I don't want a big explanation because we don't have a lot of time, but I'm curious to see who you guys would have. I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, I said that I would love Canada to play teams like Romania and Spain. Like if they're in Europe already, do a mini, Europe tour, play those 2 teams that are kind of closer to Canada's weight level, weight class. But what would you guys like to see Canada play?
Okay, I am going to half agree with you, Dan. I am going to say Spain, and then purely for money, Germany.
See, interesting, because I was thinking Germany just because I'm like, go pump somebody before you play the United States. And all on like, yeah, Spain would be cool. Like Romania would be cool. I guess it depends on like COVID restrictions in other countries and stuff, and who you would actually be allowed to play. You probably aren't going to be too picky about it. I know it's not Europe, but I feel like the one test match that I still really want to see is Namibia.
Yeah, that's not too far. Like
I mean, if
it's just South Africa.
Yeah, no, it's
the equivalent of South Africa,
different continent. But like, I still think like there's that small part of me that's just like from the 2019 World Cup. I'm like, I want to see it.
Yeah,
like what? Because I think you have that. Like, it's got that intriguing one where it's like maybe Namibia hasn't necessarily been like a powerhouse, but it's like they are technically ranked higher than Canada. And, they looked good at certain stages of that World Cup. I mean, their first half against the All Blacks, or the first 30 minutes or whatever against the All Blacks, was pretty solid. And I mean, you see kind of like some of the Namibian guys coming into MLR now, like Stevens and Boyson, and like there's, what I mean? Like there's a lot that I think like, I wonder what that game would actually look like.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think out of any team that Canada can play right now, it's like, I'm not saying that this is like possible, but to me, that's the most intriguing test match that Canada can play right now.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, there was some sevens going on this weekend as well, as we mentioned previously. The Emirates Invitational sevens happened in Dubai. Canada's women's went first overall, beating the Americans. It was actually quite a fun game to watch. I watched it with my daughter, so it was a lot of fun showing her Canadian women playing high-level rugby, and she was just super excited to see girls playing rugby, so that was a lot of fun. The Canadian men didn't fare as well, finishing fifth. Listener of the show, Mark Button, asked us how we felt about the kits. If you don't mind, gentlemen, I'll go quickly first. I did not like those black ones. They looked like a practice jersey.
I thought they looked like Batman.
They looked like Batman, yeah.
Which I don't think is a bad thing, but they looked like Batman.
Well, yeah, fine, okay, all right, fine. And then the I only saw them on the women. They were collared red and white jerseys. Again, big fans of the collar. I got the Arrows one behind me right there. Looks great on YouTube. But they were odd sizing. Like they seemed kind of big on some of the players. And other than the collar, they're a little bland. And it was weird. Some of the girls, and you could see it in the photo of them winning. Like some of them either had the collar tucked in or didn't have collar at all. So it was weird. It seemed very mixed matched, and you could definitely tell with the US team, they were wearing like training shirts. Like they weren't,
I think
haven't had anything special. So Derek, he'll kind of tell you about what he thinks, but I kind of agree with him that these might not be the final kits that they're going to use.
Yeah, I'm not sure, especially like obviously the Olympics, with that being the next big sevens tournament, you got to expect that they're going to have a special Olympic kit. Mainly because like the Olympics won't let you wear sponsors, and they won't let you wear a federation logo either, right? So you got to have a different crest on the kit too. If you remember, like the Pan Am Games had like a leaf with the Olympic rings, I think, when they played the Pan Am Games. I think they'd use the same thing in Rio too. I was just kind of like, I like the general look of the red kit for sure. Kind of like just solid red, white collar. Kind of reminds me of the 91 World Cup kit, which is kind of a classic design. But yeah, kind of seeing what some of the other teams were wearing, and even this kit for Canada too, like because sevens usually has last names on the backs of the kits and stuff, and those were absent from it. And then like accompanied by like Dan said, like what Team USA was wearing, and they were just, I don't even think they had an Eagle logo on their kit. I think it was just like a dark blue practice kit, really. So I'm not completely convinced that those are like the final ones. So a lot of teams seem to be kind of like, we're going to, we need something to wear to this invitational tournament. And I think Macron and Rugby Canada would probably want to like do some sort of like hyped up like release thing with it. Um so like that so for that reason I don't really think they're the final ones. Um I enjoyed watching the women's team kick some butt though. That was nice to have them come back. Lots of play like the game against the United States. I think like Williams had 2 tries flying down the wing.
Doing somersaults and
Doing
stuff.
some yeah, that was cool. You got to put the little flair on it. It's always fun. I thought Apps played really well too. I know Farella had a really nice turnover at one point during the game. Ben is always good. It's nice to see like the team still clicking. I guess the opposition in the tournament, it's like, the All Blacks, the All Blacks or the I guess
Australia.
excuse me, not the All Blacks, the Black Ferns Sevens. Um and yeah, Australia, like they weren't there. So it'd be interesting to see how they kind of stack up against them. But it's nice to see them get back on the pitch and have some success. I also liked that they got everybody in, like the full roster played at some point during the tournament to get everybody some game time.
Yeah.
I think that's good too.
And it was interesting because it definitely looked like a smaller pitch
Yeah,
compared to like and again like all that's the kind of the luxury of the 7 circuit is they're playing on huge stadiums. So like they're always going to have these large pitches when they play, and it just seemed like everything was a lot more compact. And
I think it's just
especially watch
a little bit of camera positioning though, because I don't think
maybe
that was a
maybe but yeah, no, it was fun to watch the women's, and then it just looked like a lot of execution things,
hey,
definitely didn't warm, definitely
first time back on the pitch in a
exactly.
year,
And
right?
we're going to say that a lot about a lot of things.
But I think that's what you need though, going up, building up to the Olympics though, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, like we were just talking about, and like the MLR, as an example, has a little bit of a preseason-y vibe going on for the first couple weeks of the season,
For
just
sure.
because teams haven't played in over a year. A lot of guys on the team, like you have some of the Canadian and American players haven't played a full rugby game since like the World, or I guess not the World Cup, since the last week of the 2020 MLR season, week 5. So it's been over almost a year without it. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
to
I'm
back
not
into it.
trying to pot shot the men. They definitely
No,
had
they
some
won.
really
That's all that
really
matters, and they beat the United States. That's all that matters.
yeah,
As long as you beat the USA, I'm happy.
it's fine. All right, guys. Well, let's move on. Hopefully Sue will rejoin us soon.
This is Stu's punishment for picking against the Arrows. As it's not
poor
actually
internet connection.
yeah, it's not actually a
bad.
bad internet connection. I'm just opting to mute him and constantly keep him out of the podcast because he was an unloyal Arrows supporter and chose against Old Glory DC, which, as we all know, and we'll discuss later, was a horrendous decision.
You know, I'm not even going to comment on. I'm not even going to touch that. But you know what? We've got some more exciting news about rugby in North America. A new league is starting up. A new rugby league. The North American Rugby League will start in 2021. And you know what? I think we're in that. My Wolfpack kit last week was a premonition, Derek, because the Wolfpack are back. They will be joining the NARL. That's going to be the NARL. They're joining NARL in 2021, and so are the Ottawa Aces. The Ottawa Aces were going to follow the Wolfpack's path by joining the rugby league system in the UK, but with this domestic league opening up, Ottawa has decided to keep it local. Now it's tricky this year. The Wolfpack and the Aces will be playing each other in the Canada Cup. So it sounds like it'll be a little mini series that the teams will be playing against each other. And then next year they will be joining the rest of the American teams, which consist of the Atlanta Rhinos, the Boston 13s, the Brooklyn Kings, the Cleveland Rugby League, the New York Rugby League, the Washington Cavalry. The West Coast Conference will then be made up of the Austin Armadillos, which I think is a great name, the Las Vegas Blackjacks, the Phoenix Venom, the Portland Loggers, San Diego Swell, and the San Francisco Rush. Now, Derek, my question to you is, how do you feel that this new league will be for fit for the Wolfpack and the Aces? In my opinion, we're definitely not going to see the type of caliber of players that the Wolfpack had in the previous season.
God, no, not even close.
Not even close. But I think that this is a really cool opportunity for North American rugby league players, especially Caribbean rugby league players as well. Teams like Jamaica have some strong teams down there. I think this is a great opportunity to, grow rugby league. And if there's guys that are looking for a new experience, maybe want to have made thoughts about moving to North America and want to play a little bit of rugby league from other countries, I think this is amazing. What do you think about this?
See, I think the idea of having a professional rugby league competition, because I feel
like saying rugby league.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like saying league is weird. That's what they should have named the league. They should have called it, like, they should have put the extra L on there.
It's like when people say ATM machine. It's like the machines in the M.
DC Comics, it's Detective Comics. That's just a nerd reference for no reason. Anyways, I, to be honest, I think the idea of having a professional rugby league competition in North America is cool. I am kind of skeptical on this, admittedly, though. I think one of the things that the Wolfpack didn't really do as great of a job at while they were here, it's like I don't think they did enough to really grow like grassroots level rugby league in Canada. And if you're gonna pull up and even the same with like North America, like I don't know if they have like the grassroots level support system to like support a full-blown 12 team professional league. I just don't know how that infrastructure is there. And I've seen on a couple of like local like rugby league groups from groups from like around North America of like people saying like the local rugby league infrastructure that is in place there hasn't heard of some of these teams or haven't heard of like the group joining it and stuff, which is a little bit of adds a little skepticism to me too. What's happening between this and like that Canadian Cooperative League or whatever it was called, like the 4Cs RL?
Yeah.
How does that coexist? Like, what's the difference?
Well, I wonder if that's,
you know what I mean?
Like, obviously, I think one's like the Canadian club program that we have in Canada.
Yeah, but we still don't have enough, like a whole lot of clubs. Like there's more Aussie rules clubs in Ontario than rugby league clubs.
So this is what they're trying to build up the sport. We can't complain, but we want we don't know what the relationship between the Wolfpack is and the CCCRL, right? Like we don't know if that relationship is already there yet. And I think it's hard to, you're right. Previously, the Wolfpack did not do enough with the grassroots, but I think it's hard to bash the Wolfpack when what they're trying to do now is, and from what the NARL, what NARL has kind of put out, is they want to give North American players an opportunity. And I look at sports like lacrosse that has, multiple, variations of pro leagues. Like, you've got the box and then field lacrosse, and those are similar sports, but they have two separate professional leagues now. Like,
no, I'm not saying you can't have it, but like box lacrosse and field lacrosse are like, that's our national sport too, right? Like there's a lot of
but down in the States, like that,
there's still a lot of people that play lacrosse in the United States.
I know, but I'm just saying that I don't think that there's a problem with having the CCRL and also
I don't think it'll necessarily be a conflict. I just want to know how it does coexist, or like what the difference, I guess, is.
Yeah, and we're in what, week 1 of the NARL's existence?
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully
I don't
and we'll see more.
Because I see like Eric Perez is still talking about having the Aces in League 1 and playing in this, which I'm just like, no, like that don't do that. Like
don't
do that.
Don't split your resources.
Yeah, don't do that. That is
go all in, because it shows that
that's terrible.
That I agree with you. Don't do that. Like that is showing that you're fans in Canada, that you've got one foot out the door, 1 foot in.
Yeah,
Like,
don't do that. Don't do that.
Just
Yeah, don't do that.
put your resources, the money that you want to spend
What-
on transporting your team to another continent, into growing the sport. And then that's all we're going to say about that, because we are cautiously optimistic. We have,
Yeah, I think cautiously optimistic, I think, is a good way of like wording, like where I kind of like where I'm just kind of like, I think the idea of having pro league is cool. I think I want to ultimately, I have skepticism about it and stuff. And even like the Wolfpack branding, I'm like, maybe I don't know how I feel about bringing that back, because I think there is some like, that was a team that had like lawsuits and still owes a lot of ticket holders a lot of
you know what?
fees.
I disagree. I think you got to ride I think that's kind of stuff, when you see how shrunk down the organization's going to be, you'll kind of forget about that. And new ownership changes a lot, right? Like, new ownership.
Does, if people are fully aware that there is a new, or I guess it's like what, somebody just bought the intellectual property, I guess, right? Anyway, I'm like I think I just ultimately, like, I want to see more of like what the actual business plan is before I get like too excited about it. And yeah, like I don't know if like the player pool of league players is big enough.
Yeah, so we'll
to
see
do
how
a
that
12
develops
team
for
pro
sure.
league in North America.
All right, well, we're still missing Stu, but we're going to keep trucking along, because there has been some MLR signing news and trades. So we're going to kind of blow through some of that quickly. The CLC Wolves sign winger Carson Leitner, 5 BC premierships. He's played on the Sevens team. He's played in 17 matches. They're kind of hurting a little bit, especially with the departure of Brock Stoller and their depth and wing. So great for another young Canadian to get a spot. The Sabercats signed lock Lucas Albornez. He has one cap versus the US in 2017. I believe he was playing overseas in New Zealand.
Yes.
Before he came back to North America. So
He's,
again, we got to have more of these Canadian rugby players coming back and playing in domestic leagues.
Yeah, he's a
better
dual,
chance.
I think dual Canada Argentina citizenship.
Fantastic.
Which
So,
you would think means he fits in great on the Arrows, but
he's the mediator when they try to decide where they want to go for supper.
That's just a joke. I'm sure like he's going to be fun. He'll hopefully do well on Houston, although they are struggling right now.
Yeah. I'll be talking about that later. And then the final little bit of transaction news is LA has kind of continued their cap space clearinghouse sale by trading Nick Boyer to the Houston Sabercats. So the Sabercats have been quite busy.
Because they got to make the team better somehow, I guess.
Yeah.
They have like, how many scrum halves does Houston have now? Because that's what
there's
Bruce, who isn't playing. I guess he's hurt or something right now.
Yeah.
So you got Roos, Munn, Stewart, Short, and I guess now Boyer. They have what, 5 scrum halves?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of scrum halves.
It's a lot. We thought that the Arrows had a lot of scrum halves. That's the first time I really thought about that. Thank you, Derek.
It's a lot of scrum halves or whatever.
But you know what? Nick Boyer is a class 9. You know, he's been in MLR for quite some time. Played with the Legion, played with the Raptors. He's got 7's experience. He's got 15's experience. So he will be looking to kind of help shore up things while Darus is away. And you know what? You never know with that 7's experience. They might plop him somewhere else. So looking forward for Nick Boyer to get a chance to play again, because he was kind of being left on an island with LA in their first 2 games. So
yeah, I think it's kind of interesting too. So obviously LA is making these moves because they got some salary cap issues.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that trade for Boyer's cap space. I don't think Utah has officially said it, but I think we can assume that it's a similar deal for Mika Kruse.
I believe so. I think in both press releases they mentioned.
Oh, did they? They said okay. Yeah. So it'd be interesting because it's like I heard they might have to make a couple more, but I'm also like, I wonder how much cap space went back, if that was, if that's enough to do it. We'll see how many more moves LA has to make. I do think it's interesting though, that LA, a lot of talk about LA's roster too has been the amount of foreign players that they have, and obviously we already know that they traded for a couple extra foreign player slots anyways. So interesting to see that the 2 guys that they sent out were American. right?
Yeah,
So
I mean they're one of their scrum halves is also American.
oh no,
Christian
they got guys, and
Rodriguez, so
obviously like Cruze center can also play some wing, so they got some American Canadian guys that can do that, such as Stu's favorite player Ryan James. But I think, but yeah, so it'd be interesting to kind of see. I'm curious to see if they do more, if they if they have to make some more moves, or
for sure. We'll,
you know,
we'll be for sure keep an eye on that because that is a tricky situation. People love, especially on Reddit, to try to make guesses and estimations about
yeah.
the situation in LA
As a
and
as a slight side note, and I know they better get under the cap. Like I'm not saying, but like I see a lot of people kind of, I think, with like the name and then signing all the superstar guys, and then this news of like how close are they to the cap and all the speculation and stuff on it. Um, it's kind of fun that MLR actually has a bad guy this year.
oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, the
it's
Legion
kind of,
last
like,
year
I
were
mean, they
kind of
better be under the cap. They better be under the cap. I'm not trying to be like let them get away with it or something. No, absolutely
even
not.
though you are a Saracens
But
fan.
I am that's true. But that's true. But yeah,
Is Derek, if they go over the cap, is Derek going to get their kit?
only if it has James 14 on the back. But I think it's fun to have a team to hate. Like I think like you know what I mean. Like we need in a weird.
How do you
way,
know that the arrows aren't that? How do you know that people don't? Yeah, how do you know
hate
people
the arrows? Do people hate the arrows? Let me
maybe
know if you hate the. I don't know.
we
guys
might be the
apparently
bad
hate the
guys.
arrows.
We might be that gift that's just like, are we the bad?
But I think like you need like a Yank. Like I just want like you kind of need like that Yankees, Maple Leafs, Patriots team that like unless you're a fan of them, you hate them. Just for like
I'm not
interesting marketing and stuff. Maybe we are. Maybe I don't know. Is it Seattle, San Diego?
Who knows?
Who knows?
All right. Well, let's move on to
nice of Stu to pop in for like 6 seconds there.
Poor guy.
He's still working away on that red card. I haven't decided the red card for picking Old Glory last week. I haven't decided if this is going to be like an MLR red card or like a proper red card yet.
Well, let's kick it old school, just you and me for now, then, Derek, and let's move on to the Toronto Arrows match. Well, goodness gracious, what a turn of events, and we were quite happy with how this game turned out. The Arrows get their first win of 2021.
I don't think Stu was happy with the way this game turned out.
No, he very
we
clearly
can rip
said
on him because he's not here to defend himself anymore.
No, I will defend him because he said, and it was very shrewd of him, he wins either way. That's basically what his plan was. You win in either way because if the Arrows won, the Arrows won.
I would buy that if he wasn't like 1-3 on his picks this week.
But you know what? The Arrows are back. They won 40-19. Tries by Roland, Diana, Lesage, Amiras, and Higgins. Adams had a penalty kick. Willie had a penalty kick, and then Adams had that shrewd, very smart drop goal at the 40th minute to go into the shed. Which
what a great play!
It was a great play. Derek, let's get into the what worked well, the what needs improving, and who is your personal player of the match. Do you mind if I go first?
Sure, go for it.
All right,
your show. You're the
one
what worked. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, what worked well? Discipline was a lot better than the last two games. I think that the Arrows really played kind of an even keeled game. They were a lot cleaner at the breakdown. I have it like ingrained in my mind, like a couple times where Quatrin and Shepard in that Utah game were just kind of flopping around and trying to swipe out the players and got penalties from the breakdown, and hands were thrown up in the air. It was much better this time around. They kind of walked that line perfectly, especially Lucas Rumball. He had a beast of a game. Being aggressive,
side flanker in Major League Rugby.
Best, really, really walked that line of kind of challenging the laws but making sure that they did it legally. So I really enjoyed that. What needs improving? I kind of mentioned it last week about large, rangy centers kind of taking control of the game against the Arrows, and Threaten Palamo is one of the best centers in the league. So, you got to try and just kind of, it's kind of like a wave. Yeah, he's a monster. You just got to kind of take it as he goes. But we're going to be going into a match this upcoming weekend, and Billy Meeks and Adam Ashley Cooper are two class centers, guys that have Super Rugby, tons of World Cup test caps, like they've got the experience there. And I feel like if we see what's been happening with some of these rangy big centers that have been taking the game over against the Arrows, Detroit and Lesage had a much better game. They need to keep it up. That would be my big thing that needs to keep improving. They need to be on a next level for their defense. My personal player of the match is actually someone I'm just about to mention. Ben Lesage had a great game.
I was gonna say, I hope you're about to mention him. The player of the match segment.
He
awkward
played,
if you didn't mention him during this.
He played very well. Much better defensively. He had some really strong carries, including his try under the post, which was fantastic.
First career
MLR try. So congratulations, Ben. We love it. We love you and your scrum cap this year.
Tyler Rowland, also first career MLR try in this game.
That is very true. But like, I think just Ben's like scrambling defense was also just really strong. There were a couple times where like they would make the old Glory make a line break, and Lesage was either the guy making the tackle or the first one trying to jackal that ball or messing around to slow things down a little bit. So really happy with what his game was like. And who was impressive from the opposition. I kind of mentioned him already. Threaten Palamo was a beast. Doug Frazier played well. He got kind of hurt, so hopefully Doug's doing okay. But another guy who really impressed me, Fanana Schultz, the big 8-man from Old Glory. He had a lot of really strong carries as well.
That one play that he had where it was off, I think it was off the restart, where he like lit up Mirez and then immediately picked up the ball and like, I guess he stepped out of bounds or stepped into touch, so that the try didn't count. But I'm like,
yeah, that would have been a try.
I was like, oh man, like the Arrows kind of got away with one. That would have been like the early try of the year if he didn't step into touch there, because that's that was a crazy play. But
so yeah, I'm very happy with how that game went. Set piece was cleaned up really nicely. I thought that they really did a good job handling their emotions and the penalties, and I saw a lot of really fun creativity. Someone needs to tell Joaquin Tuclet though, if the offload's not there, don't take the offload, because once again, after making an amazing play and helping your team get into the other team's 22, he offloaded it to Old Glory, and it was like, okay, well, that threat's over. So Joaquin's class player, so he will get try to do that less, especially with a team like LA. But he won. He was chosen to be player of the match from Old Glory, so he got a nice bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, I thought he was great too. I wonder if that's something though, where it's like
you expect
to get used to playing with a guy sometimes to maybe, but like, I mean,
and also I think
some of those ones where he did kind of throw them and they did kind of go straight to an opposing player. He did it against Utah too.
Yeah, 2 games in a row. Yeah, and I think maybe that's he's got to get used
to where the Arrows his team
level is. Exactly. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah,
like,
you got to get.
You're not playing with Bordeaux, or you're not playing with the Los Pumas anymore. You're playing in Toronto. You're playing with high level rugby, but they might not have the instinct to be there to give you.
I would love him and Montero hooked up for some nice tries on the Pumas though. So I mean, be nice. Unfortunately, Montero injured, but that would be sweet, man. I want to see those guys hook up on a couple of nice counters.
I hope Montero comes back, so that way I can see my Montero on Ryberg violence.
Oh man, I hope he comes back just to see him destroy anybody.
I know, but that would be like Godzilla versus King Kong. Basically, this
good. Have you watched it yet? Is that good?
My older brother saw it and he said basically it's exactly what you thought Godzilla versus King Kong would be.
Perfect. That's kind of all I want. See,
although,
because what's the one thing? It was like, I feel like, because now we're obviously back in lockdown here, and it's like, not that movie theaters were open before we went back into lockdown, but like, I feel like that's one of those movies where I really want to see it on like a big screen.
Mm,
You know
mhm.
what else I would like to see on a big screen? Major League Rugby games. I think Cineplex should get on that. Make it, yeah, you can do it.
Let's
Why not?
have fans of this.
They played like, yeah,
Let's have some games in
that'd be cool. You
Canada
want to
first
go
before.
if they're stuck in Atlanta? You want to go to like a watch party at like a Cineplex?
If they're stuck in Atlanta, that means that they can't come back to Canada because of COVID. That means I am definitely not going to a Cineplex anytime soon.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll go to a Texas Rangers game instead.
No. All right, tell me
Yeah.
how you felt about the game, Derek. Let's stop trying to make me vomit.
I'll never stop that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I thought this was obviously easily the Arrows' best game.
This is literally the exact opposite of last week. Last week
Yeah,
we
easily.
had to find things to say that worked well. And
Yeah, I do find it fascinating though that you were like, the discipline was so much better. They had one less penalty than last week. Right. Old Glory.
I think part of it
Old
is
Glory had more. Old Glory had 13 to Toronto's 11. The big difference though is Old Glory didn't make them pay for them and stuff. But like, it's not like
I think
there wasn't a lot of penalties. I'm not trying to say it. I agree.
No, I also think it would be interesting to see where the penalties were as well.
Yeah.
Because
most of them are just, most of them are just in the ruck, not releasing.
Where the field is, right? Like
Yeah.
They gave up only one less penalty, but were they all in their own kickable zone? Or were they in the team's opposition? Like, compare it to the Utah game.
Yeah, well, I think that's the other thing too. Like when you get out to a big lead like that, right? Like early, like you know what I mean? Like you get up to the 15-0 lead, like that kind of forces the other team to be like, well, we got to score a try. Like we can't kick for points because we need to try too, right? Although Utah, but either way, I'm not talking about Utah anymore. But I thought the one thing to me, this game was won and lost the breakdown. I thought Rumball was immense. I thought De La Vega was insane. The way the game started was kind of weird because it was like Old Glory had all the possession, all the territory. Like the entire first 7 minutes was played almost within around the Arrows 22. But it would just be like they had Old Glory came up the pitch 4 times. I think De La Vega forced a couple turnovers or knock-ons or something. And, that was great to see. I thought the Arrows line speed in defense was really good. The counter rucking was outstanding. I think that's kind of highlighted by a play I think it's the 35th minute, somewhere around there. Cole Keith had a great counter ruck where I think it was Fanana Schultz and Roberts Tanana were the two players that were rucking for Old Glory. And Tusitala comes in to pick up the ball. But Fanana Schultz kind of shifts. And when he shifts, Cole Keith starts the counter ruck and just blows Roberts Tanana over. And then that puts him back into Tusitala, forces the knock on. They did that all game, especially Rumball. Rumball, had a couple monster steals to end a couple Old Glory chances as well. And it's Lucas Rumball just doing Lucas Rumball things, hit basically every ruck imaginable. Once again, Lucas Rumball I feel like it's something that maybe we haven't talked about as much because the Arrows are 1-2, or they lost the first 2 games. Rumball is on an absolutely torrid pace as far as
it's hard to point out good performances on losing effort.
Rumball right now has 8 breakdown steals, which is double the next highest guy in the league. And last year through 5 games, Cam Dolan led the league with 6. Right, so Rumball's just completely
taking advantage of those preseason situations,
crushing it with the breakdown steals, and I hope that continues. I think like you said, it's Palamo and Frazier and the centers. Frazier had some. You talked about Palamo, obviously, kind of highlighted by that play where Palamo kind of runs over Taylor
poor
Adams
Taylor Adams
for the try. I thought that was a really good play from Old Glory because like Palamo kind of runs into like where Dabulis his space is and kind of like curves in, which puts him into that like one-on-one with Adams. So I thought that was a pretty decent play. Simple play, but pretty decent play from Old Glory to kind of set that up. But Frazier had a couple carries where it was like, okay, like what do we need here, boys? Like 4, 5, 6 guys to tackle.
Yeah, it's crazy to see a guy his height.
Oh man,
absolutely needs so many guys to take it down.
Yeah. And he had like a bunch of big carries, gained a lot of meters. He was also great at the breakdown too. He had a couple. Frazier had a couple steals himself. Like he was easily one of Old Glory's better players. I think my personal man of the match was totally Rumball. For everything that I already mentioned. I think the breakdown because I mean we spent the last everybody spent the last couple of weeks talking about like Danny Tusitala is going to be the MVP or he's like the early MVP candidate, and he was like neutralized in this game. He couldn't do anything because the arrows completely took away his ruck speed, like his ability to get quick ball, and that's kind of what Tusitala's game is. So you could take that away. Adams, the kicking game from Adams and Tukale was outstanding. I thought they generated a lot of, gaining some territory and stuff, but also putting the Old Glory back three under a lot of pressure too, as far as like their ability to like make plays and stuff. I thought that was great. Needs improving. This is still, I think, far from what peak Toronto Arrows is going to be. Handful of missed tackles throughout the game. We kind of alluded to like obviously Palamo and Frazier were a big factor for some of those. But I think Jamie Cudmore did like a seminar on defense back in like the summer, and he was like, you got to, he wants his teams to be like tackling at like 90%. So the Arrows were around like 81, 82 in this game. So like you want to bring that up. When you win a game by over 20 points, it's probably not that big of a deal, but tighter games, you want to like shore that up a little bit. But like, there's also no tackle in the game that I was just like, ooh, like that was a badly broken, other than the Palamo one, I guess. But I think there's a lot of positive. The scrum looked better. I thought a big thing for me in this game was the line out. I thought was much improved, especially since the first 12 points of the game were from the line out, right? You had Tyler Rowland scoring his first career MLR try off of driving ball at the line out. And then you also had Thomas De La Vega, who again, Arrows, I think we could probably start being like the Arrows have the best back row in the league, maybe. I think that's a genuine conversation that you can have. And I think like De La Vega's lineout steal monster. And, they were able to run that back up, and that ended up being the second try of the game. And I think, that's something that's great to see. Great to see them being able to build off of that. I also thought it was super interesting because we've always talked about how the Arrow scrum is super dominant. And we were talking about after the rugby ATL game, how we felt that the new rules hindered their ability to dominate at the scrum and hindered because they had to go for a line out. And I thought it was super. And as a team that usually calls for scrums off penalties, it feels like that rule can kind of hurt those teams. But then this game, they didn't call for a scrum once off a penalty, right? Like they just went straight to lineouts, which is either. Like, I'm wondering if that's either a sign of like their confidence at the lineouts growing, especially when you score on the first one of the game too. Like that's got to be a benefit. Or is that also kind of like, hey, you know what? If we're going to call for a scrum and this team's just going to take down the scrum and go for a lineout, like we might as well just go straight to the lineout, right? And maybe that's a little bit of a strategy adaptation. Maybe that's something. But also like the vast majority of MLR tries come off lineouts, like right. So maybe a little bit of adaptation to the strategy, perhaps. We'll see how much that goes forward. I think the big question out of the first couple games or 3 games now, Ferguson, Higgins, Brody have
Yeah,
all
we'll
started
talk
at
about
9.
that at the end because I want to hear how Stu felt about the game.
Oh yeah, Stu's back now. Hey, Stu's back.
Stu, how did you feel how the game went?
Not good since he bet on Old Glory DC.
Yeah.
Not
Actually, I think
this,
it's fine that
this
I
week
won.
you did not win at
overall.
all.
Yeah, I was gonna say you
This
were
was a
1
bad
in 3
week for you.
So no. Oh no!
No, you would have been 2 and 2.
I know. I
would have been 5.
I only got one.
Stu's
correct,
right. As a
but I
fan,
won.
Stu the fan won. Stu the podcast host lost.
Yeah. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes. So I lost, but I won. So that's all. So yeah, I feel. So I was obviously connecting whilst Derek was talking. So unfortunately, I didn't get everything that he said. So the things that works well, if I can narrow it down, is the attack plan. It just has all clicked together. And as a Welsh supporter,
You're loving
I
this
was
now,
feeling an incredible sense of deja vu with some of these running plays. Oh, well, I've always loved the attacking play, and I've always loved the arrows, and now it's a combination of the two. So this is the Howley template come to life, and it doesn't always work. That's why Wales don't have a block record of Grand Slams from 2008 to 2019, obviously. But it's working against. It worked spectacularly well against Old Glory. I mean, that try by Ben Lesage just carving through the defense was phenomenal. And then we have the tries by Mires and Higgins to finish off the Arrows try scoring opportunities. So, the attack plan is coming together, and it's now time to. I think it'll be tested, especially in the next game, but also as the season goes on and coaches are watching game highlights or the Arrows attack plan over a few games, it may need a bit of changing every few games or so, just to ensure it doesn't grow stale and coaches know what to expect. But for now, fantastic. What needs improving? I did hear you talk about Palamo, and it seems to me as though that was the epicenter of the tackling issue, because obviously having 4 missed tackles that could have prevented a try is obviously never good news to any team. But I also remember watching the game and seeing opportunities to tackle and not being pushed off, but allowing the opposition to easily offload the ball. And so I think tackling needs to be worked on as part of the defensive plan. It may just be a issue of like the gelling of plans coming together. So there's obviously Howley's coming in. He's a new attack coach and he expects this from the players, whilst the previous defensive plan isn't, it's not like 2 Lego pieces coming together. It's like Lego and Duplo coming together. It's similar, but it's not exactly there. And hopefully we can see that come together over the next few games. And, and when it does, it'll be amazing. But I think the tackling was an issue and does need to be addressed. My personal player of the match, I think, was Joaquin Tucolet. He had an incredible game as fullback. He did have the one unfortunate offload straight into DC's hands. Yeah, so
I do.
You can't be perfect, but you can be pretty damn good. And he did make up for it, especially with the build up to the Mires and the Higgins try. So he was a try assist for the Higgins try.
Great that there's so many actual man of the match
Mires as well
options in this game. Even seeing the Arrows Up fan group was discussing it, and there was 6 names that were thrown out as different people's interpretation of who the man of the match should be. And we haven't even mentioned Adrian Wadden was great again.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's looking like he's going to be maybe a guy that team Kingsley Jones needs to be taking a serious look at for a red and white 4 jersey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's the thing, is in Tuchel was so good that even Old Glory gave him their whiskey award. I'm not sure, but when they award a player of the opposing team who they feel is their like opposition man of the match. So, and that's the thing, if Old Glory can say like, yeah, this guy, he's pretty good, then I think you should take that into account. And speaking of Old Glory, I think there were some good players on that side, and obviously it didn't work out for them. Doug Fraser, as you mentioned, was fantastic at centre, had a few able to push off a few arrows in tackles, which is again something going back to the tackle issue as well. But just for experience, leadership, and of course his try that broke the duck, my man of the match from Glory has to be threatened.
One of my favorite things about the game was Mike McCartney saying off the schnoz. That is a phrase I'm going to start using way more. So awesome. We also want to congratulate Liam Murray and Ross Brody for getting their first caps with the Arrows. So congratulations, guys. Liam Murray is currently on loan from the Sabercats. I think it's one of those situations, the Arrows are hurt. The Sabercats want him to get games in. He's probably familiar with a lot of things that they're probably doing with them. So congratulations, Liam and Ross. We're excited to see more of you. Now, speaking of Ross, he had a strong game starting in the 9 jersey. Quickly, guys, I want to talk to you guys about the Arrows now have 3 scrum halves. They've got, Andrew Ferguson started the first game. Jason Higgins started the second game. Ross Brody started the third game. We've got 3 guys that have all had varying degrees of success with the Arrows in 2021. Who are you guys giving the start? If everyone's healthy too, we don't really know the levels of health right now.
Well, we know Mackenzie's hurt. He's still on the injury report. So let's eliminate him from the discussion.
Yeah, didn't even mention him.
Yeah.
But I know that he's not with the team right now, so I just kind of none of it.
That's fine. It's interesting because there's that part of me that kind of thinks, and I think it's in there with like his second half from when he came on in the second half. I think Higgins might be the best scrum, like the most in form at the moment. But I think you don't, like, after going 0-2 to start the season, maybe you don't mess with the roster that won the game. So maybe you start Brody. But I feel like it's going to be a combination of Brody Higgins next week. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree on that. And I think, because obviously you can just look at Higgins and say, well, he has 2 tries, so we should obviously pick him. But I think Brody was very instrumental, especially when it came to both from like set pieces and in open play as well. And so I think we've had Higgins come on from the bench as well. And I think now, having played what I could essentially say like a full game at scrum half by playing again, starting against Utah, then off the bench, I think he does have a better impact from the bench as well. And I feel bad for Ferguson because obviously he's been on the podcast and we don't want to make enemies within the team. But I think is that obviously Ferguson having the experience is then in the case of if Higgins or Brody are unfortunately like out for a game or 2, then you have the experienced Ferguson come on and so to put it short, I don't think they're not, but we need to speculate who's going to start because it's not going to be in a bad position.
Higgins had that dope diving
Higgins.
catch and offload to set up that Mirez try too. A little bit of got the champagne pop in toward the end of the game.
You know what, guys? I think that Andrew Ferguson deserves to be in this lineup. I think back to the downward stretch of the 2019 season, especially with the Arrows versus Rooney, and when it was Mackenzie starting the game and Ferguson coming off the bench, he brought a level of energy that helped them win a lot of games. I like the idea of Higgins starting because I think that he has been playing very well. But with a team like LA, I think I want some experience coming off the bench. And I think that we're going to get that from Ferguson, and he's going to know a little bit more when it comes to kind of some of these guys. Like, there are still a lot of players from this LA team that Ferguson would have a little bit of familiarity with, minus the international stars. So,
which is most of their team.
Ferguson,
Ferguson did say, did he not say on our podcast that his favorite player was Matt Giddo?
I think so.
If I'm recalling correctly.
So now I'm doubling down on what I said. Now I think that the Higgins deserves to maybe start, but I also liked what Ferguson did coming off the bench in Utah as well. So, I think I'm going to go with Higgins, Ferguson.
I think that's fair. I think I think the biggest thing that Brody right now has on the other two guys is that he won. Right, so it's like, I don't know. How much?
So then, do we keep Gaston Cortez out of the lineup?
Yeah. No, I would not keep Gaston Cortez.
Well, then what's the point? He wasn't part of the winning team.
No, it's true, but he was also part of the team that lost. So
exactly. So keep him out of the lineup. Don't put Cortez in.
Maybe. Well, yeah, Montero done.
Montero, you're done. Okay, you're cut.
My logic on this might not work.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Great game by the Arrows. This game against LA is going to be a lot of fun. One way or another, either the Arrows are going to make it a really, really close game, or we're going to see LA do LA stuff. But let's move on, guys, because we want to finish off by talking about the three other matches. Starting with Utah versus New England. Stu, you are on the clock. Tell us about what happened.
So, first thing to point out is that this is the first ever MLR game at Union Point, because obviously the Free Jacks didn't have the opportunity to play a home game last year. So, a long time coming, to say. I think the broadcast even opens with saying that this is the last new stadium for MLR at the moment. So, finally, it's come to New England. So for the first 20 minutes, I'd say there was, even balance of the teams. And I know that that obviously wasn't the way Utah wanted to start, especially after their performance against the Arrows. But, that's also going into talking about how good that New England's defense is. And, first 20 minutes, maybe not. First 20 minutes was for the purists. Let's put it like that. But then as the game went on, I know that New England were able to capitalize on mistakes, not just penalties, but just like mistakes in open play as well, which actually led to the first penalty. And Walker's boot was superb all game. And, it was one of those issues of like, if it's within like 40 meters of the post, then Walker's going to get the points because he was just fantastic. And that, I feel, was the dagger to Utah's ambitions that day, is that because obviously both teams conceded penalties, but it's because of Utah's indiscipline and, those forced errors with Walker on the team. That's obviously going to ensure that they're going to, chip away, build that point difference. And in the end, it was the point difference that saved New England and ensured that they got their first back-to-back win. But, let's not be down about Utah. Let's talk about the positives, including what could be considered try of the week.
The hair.
With Josh Whippy's try, that chip collection, pass. And the wind, just perfect. it was helped by a crap tackle. Let's put it. Let's be honest. It was an awful tackle by, I think it was Harrison Boyle, who was the fly half, who just hugged his waist and then let go, and ran in, and Whippy passed it off and then got it back, and then not only scored a try but pulled a New England player with him when doing so. It's the grounding is just hilarious, but Utah did keep New England honest and close, and so I would say at the same time, start of the second half, Utah are down. They know that they need to get momentum going. They need to be scoring as soon as possible. So of course, in the 41st minute, it's Dougie Fife that's scoring again for New England. Fife is probably one of the best signings for New England, in all honesty, for this season, and he's now got, I believe, 3 tries to his name, or is it 2? 3. But yeah, Utah were ultimately undone by their penalty count, and that came to play at the end of the second half when it was Mikey Teo scoring a try and the conversion, and they still lost by 1 point. So, so that'll be something for them to figure out for the next game. New England, obviously, in the positives. So I've mentioned the standout players already. Dougie Fife, Bowden Walker, Josh Whippy, all phenomenal for their teams. But let's focus on the Canadians. New England, Josh Larson, Captain Canuck. Leading by example, excellent work in scrum and lineouts. Just what you want to have from a captain, leading by example, getting things done, and obviously getting his team going. Utah is, the starting scrum half this week, Fraser Hurst. Obviously he didn't have the magic try that he had last week, but, you can't expect it every week. I mean, that's just not fair. Hurst he did what he could, but again, New England's defense was fantastic. Utah obviously have stuff to work on. The good thing is New England now go into the bye week, and Utah will be facing the Seawolves, but they will be back at home for that. So, I don't want to count Utah out. I have said in the past, they've had trouble with maintaining momentum, but they did seem to have a positive atmosphere at home. So who knows? Maybe they can.
Derek, how did the Rugby ETL versus Legion game go? Because it was
not good if you're San Diego. Yeah, exactly. It went pretty good if you were the other team.
But wonderful for the other team.
Just we'll do a little. I think maybe we can do a little breaking news on the podcast here, at least when we're recording. It'll pull back the curtain on when we actually did record this episode, though. But since it's happening now, the Seattle Seawolves have signed Akito Yamada from Japan. So it's not technically a signing though. And it says the way the press release is worded says the Yamada has been they say traded. I'm assuming they mean transferred from NTT Communication Shining Arcs in the Japan Top League to Seattle. So he would be, if that's a transfer, then that would be Asiata would be the first external transfer from MLR. I think this would be the first. Would this be the first internal transfer, or maybe did somebody else have a contract somewhere? I'm not really sure.
I don't know. That's interesting.
I think of this off the top of my head at the moment. But yeah, Akito Yamada to the Seattle Seawolves, and the Seattle Seawolves busy bye week, I guess, because they didn't play. They just decided to sign everybody. Hula Moangala from the USA Eagles. He played for the Warriors last year. He is joining the Seattle Seawolves too, so that's a big front row addition as well. So yeah, big couple minutes here for the Seattle Seawolves.
I've just seen on Twitter that the wording they've used is Yamada has joined the hunt for 2021. The wing has been traded to the Seawolves from the Shining Arcs.
Future considerations is a very North American term. That means we'll figure
whatever
it out
that
later.
Means. But
It's a very baseball thing.
It's a very baseball thing.
It's a
Yeah.
very baseball
It's
thing.
like
I'll tell you all the
I
details.
saw some like
after.
Reddit comments about like upper body, lower body injury from the arrows being a very hockey thing, and I'm like, that's true. That was created in Toronto by Pat Quinn, so it fits. It's good. Good theme to keep going. At least they're doing injury reports. Anyways, Rugby ATL San Diego Legion. This game was completely dominated by Bautista Escura, Robbie Petzer, and Rory Van Vugt. They just dissected the San Diego Legion with their kicking game. It was pretty gorgeous to watch, really. Just absolute tactical masterclass from Rugby ATL. Their defensive line speed, especially from guys like Heaton, Momsen, Retta Lingheis, Wengluski, Petrakopoulos, they hit a bunch of rucks, but the line speed was unreal. And every time either Van Vugt or Escura or Petzer would throw a kickback, into like towards Osley or Tota Vasau, who, I mean, Tota Vasau almost every time he had to turn around to go back and get a kick, which kind of forced him to kick back a lot, which isn't really Tota Vasau's game. He kind of likes keeping the ball in his hands and like running through people, right? So they just Rugby ATL just did a great job pretty much neutralizing a lot of San Diego's best players. And, by putting the ball, kick the way they kicked, and then their defensive line came up so in sync that there was just nowhere for anyone to go. They made their tackles, they controlled the possession. They even San Diego had the ball more during this game, but the territory was 63% for Rugby ATL, because it was like San Diego would get the ball, but they couldn't get out beyond like their own 30 meters out of their own goal. And eventually Peterson would just be forced to kind of kick it to try anything. And that just meant that the ball went back to Van Vugt or Escura, who were the two best players on Atlanta during this game. And it's like they kind of, the defense just kind of forced San Diego to put the ball back in the best players' hands. And that was pretty much the story of the game, man. Like, it was completely dominant. That being said, I think Carlo Denician might have been the best player on the pitch in this game. Just, he was everywhere. He had an immense work rate. He was getting the rucks. He had a couple, because there was a couple like nice grubber kick attempts, and he was like running like halfway across the pitch to be the guy that would get on the ball to cover these. He did manage to find a couple really nice lines to run through. Wu Ching had a nice try too. But I think like there was one play, O'Keefe had two tries on the wing, and they were just like great passing plays, kind of nice plays that like wingers love, because it's like by the time the ball gets to them, all they have to do is jog and dot the ball down. But O'Keefe almost had a third try, and like Denician literally, like, O'Keefe gets the ball on the wing, probably like 35 meters out, and Denician's in like the middle of the pitch, and he just gets a perfect angle and like runs O'Keefe down and knocks him into touch. And it's an outstanding tackle. It's a try-saving tackle, hat-trick preventing tackle. So that was great. Canadians, Travis Larson played 15 minutes at the end of a blowout. So, I mean,
what are you going to accomplish?
Yeah, he played 15 minutes at the end of a blowout. Matt Heaton, as I mentioned, he played the full 80. He was terrific. He led his team in tackles, made 17 tackles. On the day, I only missed 2 of them, but that's fine. He had three of those tackles were dominant too. And he added, a couple carries just for 18 meters, but he hit the gain line on them more often than not. And he had got around, got to a lot of rucks and stuff too. He was, good work rate throughout the game. Well captained, a lot of good decision making from his part, like very tactical of kind of when Rugby ATL would kick for points versus go for tries. So that was, great performance from him. It was just maybe a little, a little overshadowed by the fact that so many of the backs on Rugby ATL played great. And I mean, like Wooching was solid. Wooching was also really good for San Diego. But it's interesting, man, because it's like this really, we're a couple 3 games in. This does not look like the menacing mammoth juggernaut team that they were in 2020. So good for Atlanta too, man. Like I think coming out of 2022, the best teams Toronto, San Diego, and those they're 2-1, and their 2 wins are Toronto, San Diego right now. So Atlanta's probably got to be feeling really good about themselves. Coleman going to be out for a while. And I think as Kura Petzer as your 10-12 combination could be problematic for some teams in the Eastern Conference. And it looks like too Wengluski and Petropolis, the scrum looked a lot better. Atlanta won 100% of their own scrums this week, which, despite beating Toronto, as Dan mentioned, back, a couple episodes ago, where they beat Toronto, but they were only like 50% on scrums. So you're already kind of seeing an improvement there from them. And obviously, like, O'Keefe recently joined the team too after Harley Davidson was injured in week 1. So new additions kind of coming through clutch for them so far. So I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing out of Rugby ATL at the moment.
All right, well, guys, I've got the last game. I had the Battle of Texas. First things first, I want to thank Carrick Blake on Twitter, at Analysis Guy 0502. He did a wonderful little breakdown and made a nice, clean graph for me to kind of build my analysis of the game on top of the fact that I watched a really fantastic game. Had a large animatronic armadillo, which was horrifying. But you know what? It was a great game. I think this game will be remembered by the inefficiency of the Sabercats and the defense of the Gilgronis. One of the big stats is that the Sabercats had 12 contacts, which were negative contacts. So the Gilgronis had 0. And I think that's the big one, is that in terms of making those tackles and making them dominant, the Gilgronis did a fantastic job. They were super aggressive. The Sabercats recorded 68 more phases, yet only had 6 more dominant carries. So yeah, they had the ball a lot and they were carrying the ball a lot more, but they weren't doing it effectively. And the defense pummeled their carriers again 12 times, which is a lot in a game. And I think the other really cool stat that Carrick pointed out was the Gilgronis were very efficient in the 22, converting almost 3 points per every 22 entrance. So 2.889 points per 22 meter visit. That is a very efficient offense. They didn't have as much of the possession, but when they had it, they did a really good job of making sure that they finished their job. The lineout was a very powerful option for them. Mason Cook had 2 tries of his own, and then Jamie McIntosh had another try to kind of push it in from the forwards. And then Roderick Waters kind of had a try to finish off in the last couple minutes. Again, nothing from Houston. This is the second goose egg that they've laid in the last 2 games. They had 3 yellow cards to Austin's 1. So the fact that you've had that much possession and had more disciplinary action against you, that's not a good sign for Houston. When you're a team that's not scoring a lot but having a lot of possession, it's just going to come down to execution. The relationship between Robbie Povey and Sam Windsor was very odd. I felt like even though Windsor was in that 12 jersey and Povey was in the 10, it felt like a lot of things were still coming through Windsor. a lot of plays were still going through them. So it just felt like Povey was just an extra scrum half in a lot of cases. So I would like to see Robbie Povey get more opportunities to play that fly half position, and not everything go through Windsor, because Windsor's a big enough guy and he makes enough line breaks and good little runs that he can be an effective 12. But I think they need to start giving Povey more options to be that number 10. In terms of other Canadians, Cole Davis came off the bench for Frank Halal. I kind of wish that he started over Roderick Waters. Roderick had a lot of strong carries and he had the try at the end, but anybody after that pass from Pele Cali could have made that made that try. So, Cole had a lot of really strong carries, and I think that both of them have similar playing styles. Roderick's is just a lot bigger. So kind of a shame to see him only come off the bench, but he still played really well. Like I mentioned, Robbie Povey had an okay game in the situation that he was in. And then the new signing, Lucas Albornez, came off the bench and in the 68th minute. He was serviceable. It's hard when you're a new player to come in, especially in a position like lock, and come off the bench and try to make impact. So other guys that I thought played really well. Sebastian de Chavez was the captain in this game for the Gilgronis. He was aggressive, just a mean man. And I thought he played really well. Frank Halal, before he went off, was also a monster, making a lot of really strong carries. Jamie McIntosh, the Wappa, as everyone's calling him, he was a beast. Really enjoyed watching him play. So for Austin, this is starting to see the Austin that we know. I think that the backs have more to give. But if that pack plays like they played this past weekend, then they're in good shape in the West. For the SaberCats, 2 games in a row, you failed to score any points. That's not good enough. Hopefully they can figure something out, because they've got talent on this team. Maybe having someone, coming in can change things. They just made that trade with LA for another scrum half. So maybe that can do something about it. But as it looks, they are in rough shape.
So I've got a question, Dan.
Yes.
If 2 teams now have been able to beat Houston without conceding a single point, how crap are Seattle then this year to have lost to Houston?
Houston always wins their first game.
It's tradition. You have to let them win.
It always wins their first game. Seattle,
I don't know. Like I want watching that it's just a different team. Like the execution was there in that first game.
Yeah.
For a first game, Houston is almost unstoppable in Major League Rugby.
Yeah, like they were making offloads.
They have to play games 2 through 16.
I don't know where Robbie Povey's spot is on this team, whether or not he does stay at 10 or they move him to fullback and you move Frere either on the wing or something like that.
Do you move back to fly half? Excuse me.
Pardon me.
Do you move Windsor back to fly half? Like, do you try that again?
That's his spot.
At this
right?
point, anything. Just try anything at this point, because what they're doing now ain't working.
That's right.
Where the yellow kit? Look at the Toronto Arrows. Toronto Arrows put on blue shorts and won. Blue shorts with last names on it. Just change something up.
There you go. We'll see what they can come up with.
Yeah, mix and match. Wear like the black. I don't know. Wear the black kit with yellow shorts, or the other way around. Like, just do something.
They've got San Diego coming up this week, so we'll see what they end up doing. Yeah. All right, guys. So let's finish off this episode with our predictions. So, first game, Toronto versus LA in NOLA. Who do you guys got?
Toronto.
I have to ask now because I don't know. I'm also going Toronto. I'm going Toronto as well. Stu?
So I'm on the fence because, first of all, shut up, Derek.
I didn't say anything. I just rolled my eyes really hard.
Your breathing was annoying me. because now this is the thing. If LA had played last week, I would have said Toronto. However, they have a bye week. They have all these like big internationals who have like lots of game experience, and they've shipped 99 points in 2 games, admittedly against Seattle and New England. But New England aren't to be sniffed at. I think it's going to be really close. And
I never said it wouldn't be close. I just said I'm picking Toronto. You seem to be struggling with this one, though.
Yeah,
Toronto,
I am.
number 1 defense in the league in 2020.
Well, it's 2021.
It's true.
So we've yet to see.
We just talked about how well they played.
Now,
first road game for LA. We haven't seen them on the road yet.
That is true, but this is the thing. Now, we all know sports are incredibly superstitious. It's like it doesn't matter what you believe, what faith you have, but if you don't wear the right socks, your team is going to lose, and it's all going to be your fault, isn't it? So I'm thinking maybe if I predict that the Arrows win, they lose a game. But if I predict their opposition wins, the Arrows win a game. So do I do the noble thing and go for LA on the understanding that by picking LA, it means that LA will lose?
Just pick somebody.
All right. You know what? I'm already in the doghouse. I'll pick LA.
All right.
You suck.
All right. Derek, be nice.
No, he picked LA. What a jerk.
All right. Don't tell me.
He's wearing an Arrows hat and he picked LA. Man, you know what? Ryan James really is his favorite player.
You'd also really really like DTH too.
I don't think he's actually. I think he's disguising his if I pick.
Don't project your feelings onto Stu.
Well, yeah.
Listen,
insecurity is a very
don't go down this road. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to beat up your friends emotionally. We're moving on. NOLA versus Austin. Derek, who do you got?
Ooh. This one's actually quite fascinating. I think who's NOLA's at home, right?
Yeah.
And after Toronto or something.
Yeah.
I'm going to take NOLA in this one.
Okay.
I think NOLA's looked good so far.
Just to give everyone a quick update, Derek is 8-7-1. Stu is 5-10-1, and I am 7-8-1. Just to give the listeners a kind of an idea of where we stand currently in this season. All right, Stu, who are you picking?
For the exact same reasons I've chosen LA, I've got to pick NOLA because home ground, they've had a bye week, and they've already shipped so many points against opposition.
So does that mean you want Austin to win? I'm so confused by Stu's logic now.
It's only when it's Toronto.
Only Toronto.
Thing.
Yeah. I got you, Stu. I'm going with Austin. I think they're going to be fired up about this Texas Cup win, and I think that they are one of the teams that are suited the most to beat NOLA. I think that they're going to pull the win out. Okay, Rugby ATL versus New York.
If Rugby ATL plays like they did last week and uses that kicking game, it'd be interesting to see how Foden, Nawadi, Holland said all kind of react to it. So I'm gonna go with Rugby ATL.
Okay, Stu, who are you picking?
It's ATL at home, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
I will also go with ATL then. And for anyone watching on YouTube, wondering where I am and what that noise was, that was my camera battery announcing that it has died. So,
you know what that is, Stu? That's like the universe being like, "Oh, this guy picked against Toronto. Goodbye."
I think it's the universe saying this podcast recording has gone on for so long that you need to change your battery. Anyway, Daniel, what are you picking?
I'm picking Rugby ATL as well. I think that they're riding the snake juice, so they're riding high. Okay, Houston versus San Diego. Derek, 2 teams that lost last week. Who are you picking?
In all honesty, if I have learned anything from watching Major League Rugby over the past year 4, and what I have seen so far from this season, I am never gonna pick Houston ever again. So San Diego it is.
Okay.
Because they're playing Houston, not because I think San Diego's great, but it's because they're playing Houston.
All right, Stu, who are you picking?
Well, I think this will be completely undone if Houston decide to wear like the yellow kit or the yellow shorts. But I'm gonna have to agree with Derek. I'm going with the Legion.
You know what? I think they're gonna want retribution. I'll pick Houston. I'll throw them a bone.
Yikes. Better be.
I'm comfortable with my lead against Stu right now, that I can take a wild card and go against you too.
See, that's the problem with like your mentality though. You're just like, I'm fine with losing to Derek. That's fine. Got to change that up.
Yeah, but like, let's be honest. Out of the 3 of us, like, I probably know the least about rugby, so like any win's a win for me.
Fair.
I am the Ottawa Senators of our group right now.
True. Nobody from Toronto likes you.
It's fine. I'll live with that for the rest of my life.
I'm the only one of us in Toronto. I like you, Dan.
Thanks, Stu. I appreciate that, buddy. Okay, final match: Utah versus Seattle. Who are you guys picking? Seattle's got some shiny new toys now, guys.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. By my logic, that I used previously, I should be picking Seattle because they've had a bye week. They've, the fastest try hat trick in Major League Rugby history, possibly even a world record of how quickly that was scored. But this is also Utah, who had a very good game against Toronto. Great start to the season as well, and just missed out to New England by 1 point. And, they're back home again, so I'm going to go with Utah.
Derek, who are you picking? I'm going with Seattle.
I'm going to go with Seattle because their jerseys look cool.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that they have something to prove. I think they really do. And I think that they're going to take the time, look at the tapes, look at what they were doing wrong, especially in both games.
So,
pardon me?
So they reloaded a little bit.
Yeah, Malcolm, I cannot see him not getting the start.
Oh, no, you have to. How do you?
You got to start him. So, I think they've got a bona fide starting hooker again.
Honestly, all these new guys that they signed, just be like, all of them. Start them.
Throw them all.
Just be like, let's see what sticks here. Like, we gotta see. Can't get any worse than no wins, right? So you're only going uphill from 0, right?
All right, guys. Well, you know what? We've covered sevens. We've covered Rugby League. We've covered Rugby Canada. We've covered MLR. We've had a lot to talk about. And all I can say is we are very much looking forward to what this next weekend can bring for us.